The law of attraction is known as a tool capable of transforming dreams into reality. But there's a detail that's rarely discussed. When applied correctly, the results can be so intense that they become frightening. This isn't an exaggeration. In certain accounts, what was requested manifested with such precision that it seemed to exceed the limits of chance. And this leads us to an uncomfortable question. How far do we really understand the power of the mind? The idea that thoughts shape reality seems simple, but behind this simplicity, there exists a little explored trick, a detail that can accelerate results and shake up the life of anyone who dares to experiment. Imagine asking the universe for something and receiving it unexpectedly, almost immediately, as if an invisible gear had been activated at the exact moment the desire was projected. This isn't about cheap magic, but a process that involves concentration, clarity, and absolute focus. The curious thing is that this trick isn't secret nor inaccessible. It's available to anyone, but few dare to apply it seriously. And that's precisely where the stories start to get interesting, when coincidences transform into signs that defy any logical explanation. The law of attraction is usually presented as something mysterious, but in essence, it's quite simple. The mind attracts what it believes in and focuses on with intensity. In practical terms, it means that frequent thoughts, charged with emotion, have the power to direct experiences in real life. That's why so many consider it a powerful tool, or dangerous. The idea isn't new. Since antiquity, different cultures have spoken about the force of thought and its influence on reality. Today, this concept is popularized in books, lectures, and videos that promise everything from financial prosperity to ideal relationships. But most explanations remain superficial, leaving aside the factor that really makes a difference: how to set this force in motion effectively. What's striking is that many try, but few perceive consistent results. This happens because, in general, the practice is done vaguely, without clarity, like someone who merely desires something in passing. And it's precisely at this point that this little-known trick stands out, transforming a simple thought into something much more concrete. Understanding the law of attraction in layman's terms is easy. You focus, feel, and attract. But what no one usually explains is that there's a mental and emotional preparation capable of amplifying this process. And when applied correctly, the results don't seem like mere coincidence. They seem inevitable. Most people hear about the law of attraction as if it were just think positive and wait. But there's a detail that separates amateur attempts from surprising manifestations: the way desire is projected. The so-called trick consists of transforming a vague thought into a mental experience so real that the subconscious doesn't distinguish imagination from reality. It works like this. Instead of just wanting something, the person needs to visualize with intensity, adding sensations, colors, smells, sounds, and even emotions linked to that scenario. It's like writing a movie script inside one's own mind, with every detail carefully constructed. The more real it seems, the greater the force of manifestation. This trick also involves consistency. It's not enough to visualize once and forget. The secret lies in repeating the mental experience, like training a muscle. Gradually, the brain begins to create new connections, strengthening the belief that this is already part of reality. And when the mind accepts it as true, external circumstances seem to align to confirm this conviction. That's why it's no accident that many success stories about the law of attraction mention this type of practice. It's not magic, but a deep mental process that can be enhanced when done in the right environment and with the appropriate mindset. And that's precisely what leads to the next step: the correct preparation before putting the trick into action. Before applying any law of attraction technique, preparation is the key point that most ignore. It's not enough to simply think positive amid the chaos of everyday life. It's necessary to create an internal and external environment that favors concentration and clarity. The mind works like a mirror. If it's full of distractions, it will only reflect confusion. That's why silencing noises, organizing the space, and especially calming the mental flow is essential for the trick to have real effect. This preparation involves simple but powerful practices. Breathing deeply, closing your eyes, and remaining silent for a few minutes may seem basic, but it completely changes the mental state. It's at this point that techniques like meditation, conscious writing, or even the simple practice of giving thanks before starting come into play. Each one works like a tuner, leaving the mind at the exact tone to receive and project new ideas with amplified force. The physical environment also has an impact. A clean space, softly lit, perhaps with candles or symbolic objects, creates an atmosphere that communicates to the subconscious that something important is about to happen. It's not the object itself that makes the difference, but the meaning it carries. An organized desk, a notebook reserved only for visualization notes, or even a quiet corner of the house can serve as mental portals for this process. Additionally, there's emotional preparation. Desiring something while feeling insecure or anxious sends contradictory signals to the subconscious. It's like trying to drive with one foot on the accelerator and another on the brake. That's why, before applying the trick, it's necessary to align emotions with desire, feel as if it were already real, and vibrate at that frequency. When mind, body, and emotions walk together, the projection gains strength, and it's in this state that the application of the technique becomes truly powerful. The moment of practice is the heart of the entire technique. This is where the trick stops being just an idea and transforms into conscious action. For many, this process seems mysterious or even complicated, but in reality, it's a set of steps that, when followed with attention, can generate surprising results. The secret is not to view the exercise as a mere routine, but as a mental ritual that needs to be lived with total presence. The first step is visualization. It's not enough to think about what you desire. You need to mentally immerse yourself in the desired scenario. Imagine yourself living the situation as if it were already real. Feel the environment, notice the colors, hear the sounds, and even experience the emotions linked to this desire. The more vivid the scene becomes in the mind, the more the subconscious will accept it as something possible, and upon accepting it, it begins to work silently to transform this image into reality. Another essential element is writing. Putting on paper what you desire amplifies the internal commitment. It's as if, by writing, the desire stops being just a loose thought and begins to exist concretely. Many practitioners describe the scenario with maximum detail, as if they were recording a diary from the future. This practice not only organizes the mind, but also reinforces the trick, creating a bridge between the internal and external world. Finally, the process asks for silence and surrender. After visualizing and writing, it's important to remain in quietude without rushing to finish. This moment works as a kind of final signature. It's the time when the mind rests and allows the intention to fix itself in the subconscious. Some prefer to meditate, others just relax in silence, but all report the same sensation, that something invisible has been activated, as if a seed had been planted and begun to germinate at that very instant. One of the most intriguing aspects of the law of attraction is how the first results present themselves. They rarely happen obviously, as if a desire simply fell from the sky from one day to the next. Instead, the universe seems to start with small signs, as if testing the attention and sensitivity of the practitioner. These signs often appear in the form of curious coincidences or unexpected encounters, so subtle they could easily go unnoticed. It's common, for example, to think about a situation and then hear someone talking about exactly that topic, or to visualize an object and, shortly after, see it repeatedly in advertisements, conversations, or shop windows. Many describe these moments as happy accidents, but within the context of the law of attraction, they're interpreted as the first steps of a desire that's materializing. The mind projects, and reality responds, even if initially in small doses. These synchronicities work as confirmations. They're signs that say, "You're on the right path, keep feeding this energy." The intensity with which they appear usually varies, but the more focused and consistent the practice, the more frequent and impactful they become. It's as if the universe begins to align circumstances to make room for what was mentally constructed. This alignment, in many cases, becomes so precise that it defies any logical explanation. The curious thing is that the more the person notices the signs, the more they seem to multiply. Attention creates a cycle of recognition. The subconscious begins to notice patterns that previously went unnoticed, and these patterns seem to expand more and more. It's precisely at this point that the trick gains real strength. when coincidences stop seeming like chance and begin to take the form of a carefully architected plot. But, like every plot, there's always a turning point, and that's when manifestations become remarkable. If at first the signs seem like mere coincidences, there comes a moment when everything gains unexpected intensity. It's the turning point, the instant when manifestation stops being just small clues along the path and presents itself so clearly that it can no longer be ignored. It's when what once seemed distant materializes before your eyes, with details so precise they cause estrangement. Many describe this moment as a silent shock, a feeling of being before something greater than logic can explain. This turning point usually manifests in different ways: an opportunity that arises improbably, news that coincides exactly with what was mentally projected, or even an unexpected encounter that triggers significant change. The curious thing is that the precision is so great it leaves no room for doubt. The desire doesn't arrive abstractly, but as if it had been molded piece by piece to fit into the idealized scenario. The emotional impact of this phase is profound. Even the most skeptical, when faced with the perfection of certain events, become shaken. The feeling is that an invisible gear has been activated, and suddenly, all the pieces begin to fit together in a way that seemed improbable minutes before. This is the instant when most realize they're not just imagining things, but actively participating in creating their own reality. However, this intensity can also be disturbing. After all, if a simple thought was capable of generating such a concrete result, what could happen with negative ideas or feelings? This is the question that awakens both fascination and fear, because the turning point not only proves the effectiveness of the trick, but also raises an essential doubt. Are we really prepared to deal with a power that responds with such precision? When someone experiences strong results with the law of attraction, reactions are hardly neutral. The most common is a mixture of surprise, enthusiasm, and even fear. Surprise, because the mind isn't accustomed to seeing a thought transform into reality so directly. Enthusiasm, because the experience reinforces the belief that it's possible to achieve much more. And fear, because there's a perception that an invisible power is always active, responding not only to conscious desires, but also to emotions and thoughts that often go unnoticed. These reactions vary from person to person, but the intensity is usually striking. Some report a kind of ecstasy, as if they'd discovered a secret key to decipher the workings of the universe. Others feel a chill down their spine, an internal warning that perhaps they've gone too far. After all, if it's possible to attract something positive so quickly, would it also be possible to attract unwanted situations if thoughts turn to the negative side? This mix of feelings is important because it works as a reminder. The law of attraction isn't just a game of desires, but a responsibility. The mind becomes a creative tool, and each thought begins to carry different weight. That's exactly why the trick needs to be applied with consciousness, clarity, and balance. There's no point in asking for prosperity if the heart is full of fear or resentment. The projected energy will be contradictory and could generate distorted results. At the same time, these strong reactions also serve as proof that something real is happening. No one reacts with astonishment at a simple common coincidence. The emotional impact only happens because the precision of events breaks with expectations. And it's in this breaking that the big question arises. If the mind really has this power, what are the limits of its reach? And how far is it safe to go in search of answers? The law of attraction is often presented only from the positive side: prosperity, relationships, achievements, and dreams fulfilled. But rarely is the other side of the coin discussed: the risk of dealing with a power that also responds to fears, doubts, and negative emotions. If thoughts are seeds, then each one of them, conscious or not, can germinate at some point. That's precisely why the technique needs to be treated with respect. The same trick that can bring achievements closer can, in theory, make room for unwanted results. This aspect raises an important reflection. The creative power of the mind doesn't seem to work with moral filters. It doesn't distinguish a positive thought from a negative one. It just responds to emotional intensity and repeated focus. Thus, worrying excessively about something can end up attracting exactly what you wanted to avoid. It's not hard to understand why so many ancient traditions associated mental discipline with spiritual wisdom. After all, Those who don't control their own mind hardly control the fruits it generates. At the same time, it's precisely this risk that makes the law of attraction so fascinating. There's a sense of grandeur in realizing that the mind isn't just a spectator, but an active participant in the game of reality. The responsibility that comes along can be frightening, but it also empowers. If it's possible to create unwanted results, it's equally possible to cultivate extraordinary results. The danger, in this sense, is an invitation for greater consciousness and care. This duality, power and risk, creation and chaos, is what transforms the law of attraction into something so enigmatic. More than a technique, it presents itself as a tool that amplifies everything that already exists within each person. And here lies the question that many avoid facing. Are we really prepared to deal with such a potent resource, knowing that it doesn't forgive distractions, contradictions, or inconsistencies? Given all this, an inevitable reflection arises. If the mind really is capable of shaping reality with such precision, how far can we understand the reach of this power? The law of attraction isn't just a seductive idea told in motivational books. It raises profound questions about the connection between thought and reality. Are our beliefs capable of opening invisible doors, or do they just make us more attentive to opportunities that were always there? The truth is that each thought can be seen as a seed, and seeds don't disappear. They grow silently until they manifest in some aspect of life. This means that not only conscious desires, but also fears and insecurities can shape the future. That's why this practice divides opinions. For some, it's a source of hope. For others, a warning about the weight of not taking care of one's own mind. The fascinating thing is that, regardless of how we interpret it, signs and synchronicities continue to happen, leaving the feeling that there's a hidden gear moving reality. And this gear seems to respond precisely to what we project in our interior. The mystery remains. Are we facing well-calculated coincidences or a real mechanism that connects thought and existence? The most important thing, perhaps, isn't to try to reproduce techniques or tricks that can be misunderstood, but to seek to understand the knowledge that has crossed generations. Literature about the mind, philosophy, and even spiritual traditions have always pointed to the same place. Consciousness is powerful, and those who learn to study it come closer to understanding not just how to attract, but how to live with balance and purpose. If this topic sparked your curiosity, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications. Here, each new content is an opportunity to reflect more deeply on how ideas transform realities.